Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the United Jewish Podcast, where an Israeli Jew, a Persian Jew, and an Ashkenaz Jew walk into a Zoom room. And what do we talk about? Watch this episode and find out. I'm here today with my co-hosts, Sammy Schiff and Ben Hariri. My name is Eden Toronto. And, it's like before we bring any guests on this show, and obviously we plan on having a lot of them, we kind of want to start this first episode by just, giving an introduction to ourselves, who we are, what we stand for. So, Ben, why don't you start us off? Like tell them about the topic of the day, all that.
Right. Hi, my name is Ben. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, salam to all my Farsi speakers. Yeah, pretty much. I was born and raised in LA, still live in LA. I'm a lawyer out here and went to school all throughout high school in LA, moved out to UC Santa Barbara for undergrad. I was part of the Student Supporting Israel Club at UC Santa Barbara. I was pretty involved with Chabad. After I got out of UCSB, got my undergrad in history, and I ended up going to Southwestern Law School right after that. Specialized mostly in criminal law and international law, and I what I do for law right now is criminal. Um, and I also focus on international law, so I have a little bit of a deeper knowledge in international law now that I was involved in both of those classes that I took, both international law and public international law. So that's pretty much my educational background. My cultural background is that I'm Persian, Iranian, Jewish. Both my parents born in Iran. Like 100,000 other Persian Jews that live in LA. Our story is like pretty. My story is pretty quintessential or stereotypical. Um, if people are unaware, what happened with the Jewish community in Iran was we were pretty much kicked out in 1979 in the 80s. Islamic Republic took over what was once a relatively moderate Iranian government, not really that religious, became super religious in the 80s, kicked out most of the Jews, and the Israeli Persian community exploded from that. So I have a big chunk of my family lives in Israel now, and another bigger chunk lives in Los Angeles mostly. And the diaspora that exists in LA right now is about 100,000 Persian Jews and their descendants right now live in LA. So if you've ever been to LA and if you're involved in any type of Jewish life, it's mostly run by the Persian Jews. I like to say that the Persian Jews in LA are what holds down the community in Los Angeles. And right now I'm the president of the Jewish club, the Young Adult Division at Eretz Cultural Center, and I run events down there. And we have a very good crew that runs and do events and Shabbats there. I'm pretty much involved in a lot of the Chabads around the city. And the reason I'm here is because it was Sammy's idea to have a podcast and talk about our various Jewish experiences. I feel like with the three of us having three distinct but still very similar backgrounds in American Jewish life, that we can pretty much talk about these topics in an open way. And me and Eden, we kind of already knew each other from childhood, so have a pre-existing relationship. But Sammy, I've only met like a month ago, so I'm really, really excited to get to know Sammy more and to talk more about what we have going on in our community, in the world. And my goals for the podcast is just to open up people's minds a little bit, talk about our personal experiences, and hopefully it can be relatable to thousands, maybe millions of people that are kind of feeling the same way or from the same background as us.
Absolutely love that. And before we get to Sammy, I just got a question. Ben, what cities from Iran are your family from?
So yeah, Persians can be very specific on what cities they're from. So I'm half Hamadani, half Kurdi. Hamadan is the ancient city in Iran. One half of my family is Hamadani, one half is Kurdi. One half of my family generally from the city of Sanandaj, if everyone knows the country of Kurdistan, technically it's not a country. It's a region that's broken up into several countries in the Middle East. Half my family is Kurdi, half Hamadani. The city of Hamadan is where I believe Esther and Mordecai are buried in the story of Purim. Their grave
It's
is still there. It's still protected. That's where my other half of the family's from. So there are different stereotypes. I'm not going to get into it right now, but that's like my ethnic background.
It's like I wanted to say the main stereotype of Hamadani Jews. Literally, you took it straight from my mouth. Hamadani Jews love flexing that Esther and Mordecai came from Hamadan. That's
Yeah, that's
peak,
pretty much
peak
true. Yeah.
Hamadani Jew. I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's get into our next co-host, Sammy. Sammy, what's your story? What's going on?
My name is Sammy Chef. I currently live in Philadelphia, but I grew up in Manhattan, New York. I went to some instructor of Rochester, which is currently called the LaFell School now for high school. And I got my undergrad in education at Drexel University. I was president of our student supporting Israel group. I was the Israel intern for Hello. I was the part of the Israel Leadership Network for Hello International. I was a campus fellow for the Jewish National Fund, so I was very involved in our Chabad and our Me'or on campus. I'm currently getting my graduate degree also at Drexel University, where I'm still involved in the same organizations as I mentioned before, but now founded an organization called the Israel Education Project, which our goal is to teach people about Israel and how to talk about Israel. I
And where's that project like focusing on? Like, is that part of Columbia or is that something else or
No, it's not Colombia at all. It's just we found that a lot about people need more information about what's going on with Israel, not only about the information, but how to talk about it. Because just knowing the information is not enough.
Mhm.
Our goal is to teach people how to talk about it.
Connects to this podcast too, so that's good.
Yeah, it connects to this podcast as well. Um, and basically, I grew up going to Israel my whole life. My I just got back from Israel last week from an astounding, amazing trip with Meor. And how about you, Eden? But you, final co-host, Eden, how about you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go now. Yeah, my name is Ed in Toronto. Currently, I mean, well, I've been pretty much raised in LA my whole life, but I was actually born in New York, um, Queens to be specific. Um, I grew up with two Israeli parents that came fresh off the boat right after they finished the army. They came to America for the American dream. Um, I mean, my dad especially, he pretty much came to this country with $20 in his pocket. He's still my biggest inspiration to this day, and he somehow was able to make it here with my mom and raise me and my two amazing sisters. So I'm always thankful to my mom and dad for that. Um, so I guess even though I was raised American, like raised in LA pretty much my whole life, born in New York, I still identified as Israeli Jew because that's how I grew up. Like my family like especially like my parents, they were very big on raising us. Like our first language is Hebrew. Like they even today, like they try to push me to speak Hebrew around the house rather than English. Um, but funny enough, it's like heritage wise, um, I'm a pretty big mix. Like I go by if people ask me, I'll say like custom wise, I'll go Turkish because that's my dad's dad. But I'm a pretty big mix of Turkish, Bulgarian, Syrian, and Yemenite. I actually found just recently found out I have some Egyptian in me. So I pretty much have culture from like all over the place. And I guess like my personal Jewish experiences growing up, like I've had a lot of mixture. Like I pretty much experienced everything. Like I grew up a Sephardi Israeli Jew, but I also went to like Ashkenaz school growing up. Um, and most of my friends were Persian at the time, and I also learned how to read Torah from a Moroccan. And it's like my personal Jewish experience is pretty much just mixture and combining different stories and different cultures and everything. And that's something I'm really passionate about, like literally until this day. I've been in Jewish school my entire life, basically, up until like law school, like literally elementary, middle school, high school. I was in all Jewish schools in LA. And then come college, I mean, after high school, I did a year of yeshiva in Yeshivat Rashid in Israel. After that year, I went to Yeshiva University in New York, which is literally the most Jewish campus in America. Um, like either first or second, like I don't know how Toro is to be honest, but Yeshiva University is probably the most Jewish university campus in America. I spent 3 years there, and then I went to Southwestern Law School, where I got to see Ben again after so many years, which was really cool because we had that one year in Camp Gone Israel, where like we had that one summer together and it was nice when we were like in seventh grade. And then fast forward, we're like 23, 24 years old, basically, like around that age. And it's like, oh crap, like you go here, nice. Like I know someone. So it's like he was a year above me. He was pretty much like my mentor for everything. He actually passed the torch to me for our Jewish club on campus, the Jewish Growth Society. Um, I'm the president of that now. I'm really thankful to be a part of it, and I'm really thankful to keep it going. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my life. Definitely trying to get into law at some point, but I mean, I guess my goal for this podcast is I definitely want to, pretty similar to Sammy Schiff's Israel education program that he's trying to run, where it's like we obviously know so much about it, but it's one thing to know about it and another thing to like actually know about it and talk about it, you know? And it's a lot of tough conversations that I feel like we should be putting out there. Because yeah, there's a plethora of people doing it, but there's never like a shortage of voices, and like I feel like we should definitely contribute to that. What do you guys think?
Definitely agree.
Mm, yeah, one example I like to say is that there's 14 million, about 14 million Jews in the world, and there's 14 million ways to be Jewish. So practices it and celebrates it or goes through their day-to-day lives in a different way. And there's never a shortage of Jewish voices out there. I feel like at some point everybody needs their voice heard. So a good thing that we're doing with this podcast is not only telling our stories, but the stories of other people who have never been on camera before, never spoken publicly about their experiences. So my hope is also to shed a light on people who have never spoken out about this stuff, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah,
So that's my goal.
yeah, exactly. Um, and part of the reason that it's very important for me is just something that like we all have different ways to be Jewish. There's not one right way to be Jewish. Which goes to my second question. How do you guys were raised Jewish growing up? But for example, for me, I was raised modern Orthodox. I went to shul every Saturday. We were Shomer Shabbos. We kept kosher. We had mezuzah on our door. We went to Jewish schools. We went to Jewish camps. We were raised Jewish. My family actually came from 18 generations of rabbis. So I want to know, how were you guys raised?
Yeah. I'll let Ben go first. I just had a whole yak session, so.
Yeah, so me personally, Persians have a very interesting way of the way they practice. Up until the 70s, Persians were kind of low key about their religious level of observance. In Iran, it was up until like they moved to America or Israel, being what we consider Orthodox now in America was kind of unheard of in Iran, and a lot of people weren't that religious. They definitely ethnically and religiously identified as Jewish. We kept the customs like bris milah of having bar mitzvahs. Some did, some didn't, but we kept the idea of marrying Jewish from generation to generation. So if I'm trying to like pass down my lineage, I think my family pretty much spent like, let's see, like almost 1,000 years in and out of Iraq and Iran. Pretty much what we consider modern day Iraq and Iran is pretty much where like my family lineage comes from, because we all technically originate from Israel originally, but our culture developed over time. And now when Iranian Jews moved to LA, and there's not only LA, there's a big chunk of Jews in Great Neck, New York as well, Persian Jews, big community there. What I identify as is what most Persian Jews would technically identify as is like traditional,
Mhm.
meaning me personally, what I see as traditional is I wrap tefillin every day. I pray at least once a day. I go to synagogue every Saturday morning. I do Torah study like once a week, either on Saturdays or Sundays. And that's my experience. I'm not Orthodox. In my house, I keep kosher. When I go out to eat, I don't eat any meat, never had pork, never had shellfish. But if I'm out at let's say I'm at a non-kosher restaurant, I'll eat like the fish and the pasta, right? And I think this is like the level of most Persian Jews that grew up in LA. We consider ourselves traditional. I would be considered a little bit more religious to than some Persians just because I do rap every day and I go to synagogue. Like I go to Chabad, my local Chabad in my neighborhood, which because it's convenient for me and I don't have to drive. I grew up like very much connected also to Chabad because like with Eden, I started out in Camp Gun Israel. It's probably one of the most popular summer camps in America. If you're an American Jew and you haven't heard of Camp Gun Israel, like it's pretty much like what are you doing? Like it's like a day camp. It's not like the sleepaway camps that a lot of people grew up with. It's literally just like a day camp that parents would drop their kids off, pick them up at the end of the day, and it was a really fun summer camp. I grew up doing that. I stayed connected with Chabad houses all over, and I'm very much connected to the Chabad community in LA, even though myself, I'm not like a Chabadnik or a Lubavitch Jew. But yeah, in short, I would consider myself raised traditional. I still maintain like a traditional uh s- background, right? And that's what I am today.
So I have a quick question. So you know in New York, especially New York, I don't want to say East Coast, but especially like in the New York area, sleepaway camps when you get around third grade, it's very big. Is that big in LA for you guys, or is that not a big thing for
Oh
you?
yeah, for sure. In the West Coast, they had Israeli Scouts, which is one of the most popular camps out here. They had I can't think of the names, but there's definitely a lot. That's more of an Ashkenazi thing, pretty much. It's like a very common Ashkenazi Jewish thing to go to the sleepaway camps
Mhm.
during summer in elementary school, middle school, high school. But for Persians, like we just got here like 40 years ago. So that's not my personal experience. I just did Camp Gun Israel.
Yeah. I will say though, it's like even though in LA like sleepaway camp isn't like too much of a thing for like the Sephardi population here. Um a lot of LA Sephardi people like they go to this camp in Seattle called Sephardic Adventure Camp, where it's like a sleepaway camp, but it's like very, very centered around like Sephardic culture and values. And it's like it's really cool. I had a great few years there. It was super fun. But yeah, shout out Camp Gun Israel for sure. That was like
Mm.
they carried heavy,
Yeah,
heavy.
yeah, for me, I never went to sleepaway camp, but my brother, older brother, went to Camp Seneca Lake, as well as my younger brother. For me, I spent my high school summers with United Synagogue Youth, USY, doing a cross-country tour. I did the first year I did like the Pacific Northwest, which was like a 3 weeks. We went to Alaska, Seattle, Vancouver, Portland, Crater Lake, San Francisco, Los Angeles area. And then the following year, I went just towards west and then back east on a bus. So those are how I spent my summers.
Nice. That's amazing. And you know, Ben, I wanted to say before, it's like I love that saying how there's 14 million ways to be Jewish. You know, shout out to Noah Tishby. She does a lot of great work. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's like I also want to say it's like I also pretty much grew up modern Orthodox, but the way I became religious was actually pretty like it was a little slow. Like I wasn't 100% modern Orthodox. Like I mean, I like to call myself now from but chill. I like to call myself that, but it's like I mean, obviously my family we weren't like that since day one because you know my family coming fresh from Israel, like when they first came to America, they were still like considered Chiloni, which is like basically traditional Jews. Like they'll celebrate Passover, but they'll still like drive on Shabbat, things like that. Um, but my parents pretty slowly started keeping everything once my older sister was born, then I was born, and my little sister was born. Like by the time my little sister was in kindergarten, like actually no, like while she was still like in like pre-K, like around that time, that's when we started pretty much keeping everything. Um, and it was just like a bunch of stories that led to one thing being dropped and another thing being dropped. Like literally, I remember like back when I was a baby, like I wasn't able to like speak until pretty late, and it was something of
That's
concern.
the problem.
Sorry.
I had trouble. I didn't speak to very late either.
Yeah, so it's like you get it. So it's like I mean like when I was like a little kid, you know, it's like I spoke a little late. So my parents were a little concerned. Obviously, they went to like pretty much every doctor in New York and most of them were saying like, "Oh, he's gonna have speech problems for the rest of his life. He's probably like autistic. Like a lot of doctors like diagnosed me with autism and different like speech issues and stuff like that. And my mom wasn't sure what to do. And her cousin at the time, who like just became Khoser B'tshuva, like just started becoming religious again himself. He was saying, "Oh, you should daven at the Lubavitcher Rebbe's grave," because at this time we were still in New York. So literally, my mom davened at the Lubavitcher Rebbe's grave to like basically bless me with the power to speak. And like very soon after, I said my first word. So yeah, I mean, Chabad has a huge impact on my life as well. Not even just with Camp Gan Israel, but also like growing up, that was our pre-K program for me and my siblings, and like Camp Gan Israel, and also like the local Chabads, like helping us like pretty much get closer to the religion. And even today, like Chabad, shout out Rabbi Mendy Kunin, he comes to Southwestern and literally sponsors us all the time with kosher food, like at least once a week, and is a huge help. And it literally brings the Jewish community at our school together. So I'm extremely thankful for everything they do. So, I mean, yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, I just want to say about Chabad, like we all grew up with every Jew pretty much in America has, whether they know it or not, has had like Chabad impact their lives in one way or another. Pretty much every major university or college campus in America has like their local Chabad house or a Chabad house close by. And what they do for the communities there is like invaluable. The Shabbat dinners, the Torah study, the student support. There, there's nothing that they won't do. They'll go to the ends of the earth for any Jew on campus. And even if you're not Jewish, if you're a friend of the Jewish community and you're involved and you're supportive, they'll help you out too. They're very good and they're very incl for a Hasidic Jewish sect, they're also very inclusive to other people. So very non-judgmental group. They love people. They love hosting Shabbats. So if you're an incoming college student and you're wondering where you should start your Jewish life or where you think you want to go to Shabbats or to meet other Jews, I highly recommend finding out where your closest Chabad house is and getting involved with them. They're really been they've especially in the last like year and a half, they've been very helpful for the community. So I highly recommend them. They're great.
Yeah, literally them or Hillel, pretty much. It's like you just want to, like the second you get to college, and I feel like we're going to get to this in a second, but the second you get to college, like as a Jew, especially these days, you got to find your people. And it's like,
Hmm.
you should definitely like make sure to look out for your Chabad or your Hillel or your local rabbi, literally whoever. Even if you see a guy with a kippah, go up to him, say, "Hey, my name's this. Love to see Jews around here." And it's like, just build that connection because it's so important to like look out for your people.
You really go on Chabad.org, Hello International's website, or SSI, API,
Yeah.
the alphabet soup, I like to call it,
Yeah.
and look up, find my local Chabad, Hello, API, and it'll tell you who you can reach out to when you get to campus.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good transition into Sammy, our next topic.
Yeah, because you all been to campus. I was unfortunately a senior at Drexel right after October 7th happened. So we got to see the ugliness of college campuses.
Mhm.
You also got to see a lot of the beauty. What was your life being a Jew on campus?
I mean, well, I mean, I'll let you start with that, Sammy, because it's like we both just finished talking like crazy. So you go for it. Tell us.
So at Drexel, I was still a senior when October 7th happened. I actually remember being at Chabad and the dean of students drove in on her day off. It was a Saturday to tell us that Israel was being attacked. I remember the feeling of pain. Like, this is my country that is being attacked for simply being Jewish. But also felt a little comfort knowing that I'm with all my Jewish brothers and sisters at college. Not gonna lie, things on college after October 7th was not sunshine and rainbows, but we did not have it as bad as our neighbors did at University of Pennsylvania. At Drexel, we had a Jewish student store got burnt down. We had a graffiti of swastikas. We had the Intifada chants even before Israel responded. We had assaults, SGP posting, all that stuff. But while there's been badness, I want to talk about the light that we had at Drexel. On October 9th, 2 days notice, we got over 100 Jewish students to come for a rally where we sang Hatikva, we sang Achenu, we said a prayer for our brothers and sisters in Israel. And we really got the Jewish students to come together. At Drexel before October 7th, it honestly was hard to get all the Jews together. We had like mega Shabbat once a year where we got 250 people together. But that took a lot of effort. With little to no effort, we got over 100 people last minute when people had classes and they have co-ops to come together to be there. And not only that, we saw Jewish like store after. We got over 100 people going to Shabbos dinners weekly. This is something that we never used to happen before. It was nice to be together as a community and as a kahila. We had people who never did tefillin before who are now Shomer Shabbos. We had people who never been to Chabad before who's now the president of Chabad. It really shows the tenacity the Jewish people have on college campuses, at least at Drexel.
Mhm.
And it's great. We have a Ma'or, a Chabad, a Sai, a Pi, and a Hillel, all on our college campus, and no one competes. They all work together, which is nice. So for me, that's what happened at Drexel. I want to know what happened at where you guys went.
Yeah, I'll start with my just general college experience. So I went to community college in LA for a year before I transferred to UC Santa Barbara. So at my community college, we had a Chabad. They were very involved. I was part of them for the year. And it's a community college. So there's like that's not too people aren't too active on the political side, but people are very active in the community. In LA, Jewish community is strong. A lot of the same people I went to high school with were part of me with the Chabad at my campus. So it was fun, very heartwarming. I was there from like 2018, 2019 for community college right after high school. And then I transferred to UCSB and I joined Chabad pretty straight off the bat because I was familiar with them. And I was also involved with the Hillel at UCSB with, at the time, it was Rabbi Evan Goodman, and it was quite strong there too. And the biggest problems, or I wouldn't say problems, the biggest adversity we had pre-October 7th on college campuses, I'd like to say the history of the various anti-Israel groups. It started out as a simmer, if you can imagine. Like it didn't really reach a boiling point at the time. Starting around, I would say 2010 till about till about 2023, it was simmering, right? Slowly rising, and a lot of as the opposition movement, the anti-Israel movement was growing in America, so was their presence on college campuses. And the most notorious group that we've all had experiences with is SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine. And they were probably the our biggest opposition group. In our experience, they didn't care whether you identified as a Zionist or not, whether you were Jewish and involved in whatever type of Jewish club. Their goal pre-October 7th was the complete defunding of all aspects of Jewish life. If for people who don't know, the BDS, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement was very much active and pervasive on all over US college campuses pre-October 7th. And this is what my main goal was when I was part of SSI, Students Supporting Israel, and Chabad, was to prevent it from being passed. Because although the UC regents of the University of California state that they will never cut ties from the country of Israel or any university in Israel, they still SJP will still want it be passed as a student resolution on whatever college they're part of. So my biggest accomplishment in the 2 years that I stayed at UCSB, because I graduated in 2021, was that we were able to make sure that in our student senate that the BDS resolutions never passed at UC Santa Barbara. And in my last year in 2021 in May, it was a 13 to 12 vote. It was that close to passing, but we through our advocacy and through our lobbying and through our presence on campus, because the Jewish community in UCSB is incredibly strong. Rabbi Gershon Klein of Chabad, was very much involved in getting students together and making a very nice community along with Rabbi Evan Goodman at the time. And even though that year in 2021 was pretty much a hybrid COVID year, it was still a very strong campus. We had people involved in the Zoom meetings, in the lunch meetings, in person, on campus, off campus. It was a very good year. We were made up of Jews mostly from the Bay Area and LA. That's where our club congregants came from, pretty much. And they were a very strong group of Jews. Some of them, they didn't even know what Zionism means, but they were still involved in our community. Whether they came from an Orthodox Jewish background, non-Jewish, non-religious at all, one Jewish parent. Everybody had a different story and everyone pretty much came together. So I'm very thankful that UC Santa Barbara had a very strong presence on campus pre-October 7th. And after that, in August of 2021, I got into law school to Southwestern, and in the college, not the college, in the law school communities, the JLSA, the Jewish Law Student Associations, that is like the number one club for most law schools when it comes to Jewish life. At Southwestern, we also had the Jewish Growth Society, which was started by a friend of mine years before. And for us, Jewish Growth Society was our main Jewish club. JLSA is also there, and we will also dual board members, me and Eden, on that one. And it's also a very good club too. We ran a very good club. We were very active. Our main thing was kosher lunches on campus because like downtown LA, not a very kosher friendly area. So our thing was making sure we got, especially more religious people, couldn't eat non-kosher food on campus, got the food that they needed, were well fed, and we had a very good community. We would do Shabbats. We ran Shabbatons where we would go to different synagogues and sleep at our friends' houses and go and keep Shabbat. It was very good, and we had a very strong presence on campus. Once October 7th happened, at the time I was co-president of JGS. Eden was also on the board. Um, Kind of a similar story to what Sammy talked about. On the 9th, that Monday, I was able to organize a last minute vigil on our lawn and organized a lot of professors, most of the Jewish students to come. And we had a very good turnout. One of our grad student organizers, his members of his family were killed that weekend. So for him, it was very emotional. Um, and we were there mostly showing up for him. He blew the shofar there. It was a very good turnout. We had about 80 or 90. It being a very small law school, we still had about 80 or 90 people show up to the very small lawn in downtown LA. And it was a great showing. It was a great show of solidarity. And our administration, especially in Southwestern, was very accommodating and very supportive to our community. They knew what we were going through, and they knew that, and they were very patient with us. If we had problems with other students, they would always talk to us. Whenever we had disagreements with people, they would always talk to us. They always took our word for it. They trusted us, and we had a very good relationship with them. So I can say very confidently that our post-October 7th experience on a grad student campus was positive. And I know, but for other people, like for Sammy and for a lot of people a lot of Jews, young Jews going to school in America, it's not as positive as it was for us.
Forgot to mention one thing. Our school shut down for a full week, lockdown, because of the encampment.
Was that right after October 7th, or was
It
that like
was
in May?
May when everything was getting locked
Oh,
down. We thought we honestly were safe because Drexel, we just had like day protests once in a while, some vandalism, some posters. We were consider ourselves lucky with not having a lot of problems, and our administration has been good for the most part and always stood up for us. But one week when they got an encampment, all the classrooms and buildings were closed, classes online, you could barely move around campus. So
Sammy,
instead of them
did
off,
you, sorry, did you engage with the encampments at all? Or like did school close down before you even had a chance to accidentally even run into them?
I stalked them for a little bit just to see what was going on, but we couldn't even get close to them to even like engage in a conversation.
Right.
They shut it down very far away. I guess to keep everyone safe, but you could not really engage with them.
I feel like even if you got close to them trying to engage in conversation, they wouldn't even want to have one.
No.
But yeah, I mean, seeing all this stuff happening in undergrad school, and it's like, I mean, I've seen all this stuff literally happen. Like Ben said, it's been a simmer for such a long time. You always had these groups, like especially like SJP, like JVP, which I think is actually even worse because it's literally people pretending to be Jewish, but they're most of them are not. But we're not even going to talk about that. That's probably for another time. But all these groups were going on. It was literally, it's been going on forever. And I had a lot of friends when I was in undergrad at Yeshiva University. I saw my friends at UCSB, UCLA, USC, like community colleges like SMC, uh, like all these places in California, like even in other colleges where you had a big Jewish population, but it was still like a public university. So you still had to deal with all of those obstacles, like to live a Jewish life. And I remember seeing that, and I'm like, wow, thank God I'm in Yeshiva University. Because, I mean, at least for me during my undergrad experience, I never ran into anything remotely close to that. Like, we literally like, yeah, we'd be able to go to the cafeteria and every single option would be there. There was a lot of kosher food like in the area that we were living in, basically every single person around us was Jewish. I mean, I guess except for professors, but student body wise, pretty much every single person was a Jew, whether religious or not, or traditional or Orthodox, everyone was Jewish. So I never ran into any of those situations at all. But then come law school, I realized, wow, like I said before, until law school, I haven't left Jewish education at all. My whole education career has been on Jewish campuses. So that first week in law school where it was orientation, I was like, oh God, where the hell am I? Where are my people? I had no idea who I was talking to. Maybe two people like saw I had a yarmulke on my head and they're like, oh, wow, you're Jewish. I'm Jewish too. That's so cool, right? And I schmoozed with them. I was like, I basically tried to hold on to them for as long as possible. But obviously, like, people get lost in orientation, all that stuff. And then, well, I had those two people like say, oh, I'm Jewish too, blah, blah, blah. I had five other people be like, what's that on your head? And then come the club fair, I see literally who do I see at the club fair while I'm walking around? Ben Hariri with a big Israeli flag at his desk talking about the Jewish Growth Society. I'm like, oh my God, thank God. Thank God, people
Yeah.
here.
And yeah, just sorry to interject. Me and Eden have a mutual friend that you went to university with, and he didn't tell me that you were coming to Southwestern.
Uh,
So I was mad at him that he didn't tell me that you were coming. But it was the best surprise of orientation that day to see him. It was really fun.
it's super funny, but like I was literally like, no joke. I was literally like, thank God. Like I found my people, right? This is the club that I'm gonna like stay stuck to. Like these are where I'm gonna find my people. Like this is like the Jewish population at Southwestern. Like thank God, right? And obviously I made friends outside the club too, like people that weren't Jewish. I opened my worldview as much as possible. I know that's very important, and I'm happy I did. Like, thank God. Like, because Southwestern, like, in my opinion, is I feel like in general just one of the nicest places to be in, like community wise, because it's like outside of the Jewish community, which is obviously amazing because we're so like there for each other and tight knit. Outside of the Jewish community, like people in general there are just like super nice and extremely kind. And that especially showed after October 7th, in my opinion, because that was straight up, that was obviously for everyone, that was a weekend from hell. But that same day, I mean, in October 7th, like I found out I had two friends that were at the Nova Festival that sadly were murdered, unfortunately. And then also on top of that, I got the news that my grandfather passed away in Philadelphia at 96. Thank God it wasn't related. He lived a long, healthy, happy life. But he passed away, so I had to go to the funeral. So unfortunately, I missed that vigil, but seeing the pictures on my phone that were sent to the Jewish group chat that we had, like it was so powerful, and I'm so glad that we were able to do that. We were actually able to run it back this year, thank God, and it was also like a very solid turnout, and I was so happy to be able to do it again. And when I came back to school, especially, it's like people that weren't Jewish or had anything to do with the situation at all, they were coming up to me and saying, like, we're so sorry for your loss. We're so sorry about everything that's happening. Like, do you have family in Israel? I mean, I said, yeah, my father's side all still lives there. And they all said, like, we're praying for them. Hopefully everything will be okay. And it was just like such a nice touch from them because it's like they didn't have, like, when you really think about it, it's like when people post on Instagram about like, oh, everyone needs to speak up about this and that. In reality, if it's not something you're facing directly, it's very unlikely you're going to talk about it. For example, like a Jewish person, like the average Jewish person, very unlikely to talk about issues that don't relate to Judaism. I mean, it's just how it is. So the fact that you have the occasional person that does or shows respect, even, it's not a small thing, you know? It's a small act to them, but it's a huge, meaningful thing to the people that see it. So I'll always be appreciative to that. But in general, like we always had a good program at Southwestern, a good community there, especially a good Jewish community. And obviously, you run into the occasional issue. Like for example, um, I remember last last spring I was studying for finals and I walk into the library, I look to my right and I see this one person have a huge Palestinian flag on her desk and like signs saying ceasefire now, all that type of stuff, right? Everything. And you can tell from all that stuff that that person was clearly trying to like get conversation going and like spark something, right? Because it was a very like clear advertisement for what it was like in the library as everyone's studying. And I remember I saw that and I made a choice in my head, either have a conversation or like let it get to my head or study for this business associations final that I had because my class was kicking my ass. And I'm grateful I made that decision because like within 2 hours she left the library because she saw no one was
Yeah.
talking. So
Yeah, and just sorry to interject again. That person, very happy to say that I know what you're talking about. That person did not pass the bar.
oh wow. Okay. That explains it. That explains a lot.
Yeah,
Basically not
so
studying.
yeah, you can't spend too much you can't like spend too much time wrapping your head into this conflict and letting it get to you sometimes because we're grad students, we're law students, we have other priorities that we have to attend to. And
Literally.
because long term we have goals that we want to reach, we have a career that we want to start up, you know? So
Mhm. And while, listen, it's always important to speak out, always important to speak out. But the biggest thing is to remember to keep a balance to it because on one hand, you have to speak out if this stuff is directly affecting like fellow students on your campus and yourself and things like that. If you feel like it's a genuine threat, you got to go talk about it because you got to fight for your people. But then on the other hand, the biggest revenge to them is succeeding. Because as Jews, all these people are literally preying on our downfall at all times. So the biggest revenge is for us. Just like Ben said, that person didn't pass the bar. Ben passed it on his first try.
Thank you.
The best revenge you can possibly get. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but
Thank you. Appreciate it.
They don't want us to succeed, but guess what? We're the ones who are succeeding.
mhm, 100%. So
Yeah.
why don't we go? I mean, it's like I feel like we talked a lot about like what our experiences were like being Jewish on campus, but it's like, what do you guys hope for the podcast? Like, what are we trying to do with this? What do we want from other people, basically?
So my goal and my vision when I first thought of this is we hear a lot of stories about Penn, Harvard, Columbia, MIT, but schools like Drexel or University of Kansas, or even Penn still, I want to have them share what it's like being Jewish on their campus.
Mhm.
My hope is that people can see what is going on college campuses, whether it be incoming prospective students who are deciding where they want to go to colleges, or older generation who wants to hear what's going on in the younger generation. Even college students who wants to feel that they're not alone, that it's not just their campus. So my goal is to share everyone what's going on, but to share hope. My plan is to always end off with something that's hopeful for us. Just not for just us, college students, but us Jewish people, us people who believe in Israel, us as a society. My goal is to bring everyone share stories to bring hope.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that same energy is what I want to bring. Tikva, the Hebrew word for hope, is what I take to heart, and I want my goal for the podcast is also to bring hope to people because I know like a lot of us get wrapped up in the negative news we hear about the war, lives that are lost in the conflict, and like bad news they see on campuses. Especially when I talk to a lot of older people, the older generation of Ashkenazi Jews that grew up in America they went to college in like the 70s and 80s. A lot of them are shocked about what they see on campus. And I've attracted a lot like very luckily I've attracted a lot of older people when I go to synagogues. 'Cause when I go out in public and I wear my Star of David, the older generation they come up to me and some of them are shocked that I wear a Star of David in public or that I'm a young person going to a synagogue participating in life because a lot of them are worried about where the young generation of Jews are headed, right?
I
I
mentioned
think,
one thing
yeah,
quickly.
yeah,
Mentioned about like life unrecognizable. My dad is a Penn alum. The Penn he knows now is unrecognizable to him.
Mhm.
yeah. That's pretty much what a lot of older people are telling me. Like a lot of the Jewish Harvard donors, they're like they stopped donating to Harvard because it's not the campus they once knew. The UC alums, UCLA alums that are still in LA right now living, they don't like what's going on their campus. They're worried if they can even bring their kids to those campuses. They're worried if they want to tell their kids to apply to those colleges, you know. And the question comes, if you're looking at what's on the news, if you're seeing what's on your social media, what's happening to the Jews on college campus, why would you bring your son to a public university? Why would you recommend your daughter to come to a public university or even a private university, an Ivy League on the East Coast? You know, because to them, to someone
Why?
who
And
doesn't,
this is why this episode is sponsored by Yeshiva University. Uh, enroll your kids today. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Keep
yeah, yeah, that's funny. No, no, I bet like Yeshiva University has had a ton of new applicants because of what's been happening. I'm sure.
And
And
we opened for extra transfer students last year. They said if you want to transfer out, we'll take you.
wow, yeah, not surprised at all. No. And like even last year, whenever I was a third year, my last year of law school, I noticed a lot of like Orthodox people were coming to Southwestern. And I asked them why, and then they said, "Oh, because of I heard the Jewish club was good here, or like the Jewish community was strong here." So it seems to me like the people that are the clubs and the schools, whether it be undergrad or grad school, the stronger your community is, the more people want to come to universities, right? So I feel like our one of our goals is to highlight not only the strong communities that are on college campuses and grad schools, but also the small ones that you've never heard of that are thriving, that have a good Jewish life, that maybe one or two people at least, maybe even one person that watches this podcast or watches this clip and sees someone from a school that they never even heard of or they never thought of going, and they see someone, a president, a club member, an average student, whoever they may be, they'll see that and they'll have hope for, wow, maybe this school isn't so bad. Maybe I have a place at this school. Maybe I can start a future there. Maybe I can come to the community there, you know? So that's what my goal is, to put a highlight on these small communities, the strong ones, the small ones, wherever they may be, so that people become more educated and they see what it's really like on a college campus in America for a Jewish student.
Yeah. Like my goal is like, yes, we can share the bad, but we want to emphasize the good
Yeah,
because they
100%.
should still know what's going on. Like these, we're all having some problems, but emphasize this is how we're reacting. This is what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys summed it up best. Pretty much just giving people hope and giving people a voice. And I feel like especially hope is important as Jewish people in general because the religion of Judaism is rooted in hope and most importantly, like simcha, like happiness. You know, that's what this religion is rooted in. Like we literally all our holidays is basically I love Noah Tishby so much because she says so many quotes that are so true. And one of the quotes she said is like most of our holidays is they try to kill us, they lost, let's eat.
Yeah.
That's literally our whole religion is based off simcha and just pushing through and prevailing over everything. And
No,
especially now that, yeah, we had our college experiences, but now we're a bunch of handsome, entertaining young professionals. No,
Yeah.
I feel like we should also I mean, it would be nice to talk about like, the college experience and stuff like that, and we 100% should, but it's like we should also be getting people like throughout life in general, like people going their day-to-day life as a Jew because these problems, these problems and these good things, both of them, they don't stop at college, like it's not like college happens and then the rest of a life is just a gray line. It's like this stuff comes with you like for your entire life as you're a Jew. As long as you're a Jew, all this stuff is going to come.
yeah,
So it's important to like get those experiences and especially like give these people a voice too. Because before this podcast, I had a podcast of my own called the You Ask Me podcast, and like my original goal was getting professionals to come on the show and basically have people be allowed to submit questions to talk to those people about like what they do and how they get there, right? But I've come to realize, like, I've shot almost 50 episodes of that show, and I've come to realize if I'm not doing it for my own people, what's really the point of the show? I didn't feel fulfilled doing it in general, and it's like I wanted to give my people a voice because you have so many Jewish podcasts out there. Like you have Schmuck Boys, love them. You have like
Two peas in a pod. There's like
yeah,
two
Two Peas in a
podcasts.
Pod.
Yeah.
You have so many Jewish podcasts that are out there and Jewish influencers that like, show our story and give our people a voice, but you want to give everyone in our community a chance to talk. And obviously, not everyone is able to get that opportunity to get everyone to talk, but we want to do our best to help contribute that as much as possible, I think, you know.
yeah, definitely. And I want to go back to what you said about hope. We are very hopeful. We say the Shah about Jerusalem next year in Jerusalem. We
Mhm.
hope to go back to Jerusalem. Our little national anthem is called Hatikva, the hope.
It's true. I mean, I guess based on that, speaking of Israel, I feel like a good way to close off would be like us talking about our favorite memory of Israel, our home. Like what do you guys got?
So Ben, do you want to go first?
Yeah, one thing that I appreciated about my trip to Israel, unfortunately the only time I've been there is only one time, which was in Birthright one summer. But I have a good chunk of family. My Safta lives there, and a bunch of my aunts and uncles and cousins. I was able to visit them after the 10 days of Birthright. I stayed for another 3 weeks, And my first favorite memory was when my aunt and my grandma greeted me at Ben Gurion Airport, and then everybody thought it was so cute that they were there with the whole Birthright crew. They saw them say hi to me, and they were like, they're little old Persian ladies, just like welcoming their grandson and their nephew coming, and that was really nice to see them. I hadn't seen them in a while, so it was really nice to see them. Also, just meeting fa certain family members for the first time, or for the first time in like 10 years. Just the first initial meeting of cousins on both sides of my families, visiting them in their homes and their cities. It was eye-opening, and it was some of the best memories of my life will be that first trip to Israel. I plan on going back some point this year, maybe in summer, because they've been visiting me in America lately. So. But I'm very much overdue for a visit, and the one souvenir that I keep with me that I wear all the time is the kippah that I wear on Shabbat. And I didn't see me with the kippah. It's this yellow black kippah that I've been carrying with me for about 6 years. I wear it every day when I wrap tefillin. It's the kippah that my uncle gave me right before I left his house in Israel. So I keep that as a reminder of them, and it's been with me the whole time. Thank God. I almost lost it a few times, but thank God I still have that keep up with me. And yeah, just being around family is the most important thing to me when I'm there. And yeah, I really hope to see them very soon.
Hmm.
So sweet, and I hope we get to go back soon. I honestly been to Israel too many times than I can count. But one of the highlights one, I have two. One was in 2013 when I had my bar mitzvah in Israel. It's special to go home and be bar mitzvah, which is the biggest day in the Jewish man's life. To read from the Torah. I know mine specifically was Kitavo. And reading, putting on tefillin right across from the kotel, reading the Torah with your friends and your family by your side, who all came to Israel to see me become bar mitzvah. So it's extra special. Another most meaningful time was my most meaningful trip I went to was the one I just came back from. I went with Olami or Drexel, and it was special because we spent the morning learning at different yeshivas. We spent the afternoon volunteering. We cooked food for the soldiers. We helped a farmer prune his trees. We visited kids who have cancer. We visited a village for kids who have special needs. We also got to see firsthand what's been going on with 22 of my director classmates. So it's my most meaningful memories. I actually remember right before we left, we actually cooked a barbecue for the soldiers. And this was just like, I remember the last time someone came to visit us. Because they're not combat soldiers, they were just the border patrol soldiers. And then just a visit that meant so much. That actually meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and it's like, it's actually really funny because I had my bar mitzvah in Israel too, Sammy. Like I did also. It's like I didn't read my bar mitzvah parsha there because my bar mitzvah parsha is Teruma was in the winter. But in honor of my bar mitzvah, we did like a family trip like over the summer, and my whole family was there, both my mom's side and my dad's side. We danced all through Yerushalayim with the Torah in my hand, and like two like Yemenite guys were like blowing shofars and like playing the tarbuka drum. It was super fun. I remember at one point a bunch of Asian tourists were literally like taking pictures of my bar mitzvah, telling me Mazal Tov. It was so
It's so nice. You actually remind me. We actually had hotel with some of the hostages' families.
wow,
They come out about randomly, not planned, randomly. They were there.
amazing. Yeah, it's like, always, being able to go to Israel like frequently is a blessing. But I will say it's like I have gone before yeshiva, I went like 3 times with my family when I was like a little kid, and it's like I don't think I was able to fully appreciate it yet, except for the fact that like, oh, it's a vacation with my family, because I still didn't grasp it yet. Come my bar mitzvah, I was close to it, but then once I like went to yeshiva. like for the year, like gap year, I understood how fun it was to be in Israel and how amazing Israel is. But that whole year, I still didn't understand like what it meant to be Israeli because I lived a year there, but it was a gap year. It was basically, again, a vacation. Like I was able to learn all day and go to Jerusalem and like basically go to bars with my friends like at night. And that's how it was. But then after my senior year of undergrad, I joined a program called Tamid. Shout out to them. And what they did is they basically set you up. They put you in an apartment in Tel Aviv, right? With like three other people in the program. They put you in an apartment and they set you up with like a startup to intern in over the summer. And like that summer, I felt the most Israeli I ever did in my life. It literally felt like I made an aliyah. And I'll never forget that summer. Also, shout out to my boy Andrew Gottfried, absolute homie. He's like a super Ashkenazi Jew, but he introduced me to a bolika in Israel, and it's now my favorite thing in the world, and I miss it every day. It's literally like a deep fried like potato triangle, like stuff with meat, and they put it in a pita and they spread it with hummus, like Israeli salad, all that stuff. Amazing, unreal. But yeah, that was definitely to this day the best summer of my life and something I'll never forget. And that was a big, big memory for me.
It sounds like Israel is always going to be placed in all our hearts.
100%. Am Yisrael Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai.
It's okay.
Yeah. And on that note, I just want to say I really appreciate everyone here watching our first episode of the United Jewish Podcast. Thank you all for watching. If you guys want to stick around and like see what else we got cooking, make sure to subscribe to us and like this episode. If you want to see like more episodes like this, we have a lot of amazing guests coming up soon scheduled, and we're really excited to show you each and every single one of them. And if you yourself want to be involved, definitely make sure to follow us on Instagram at United Jewish Podcast. And DM us. What college do you want to hear from? What person do you want to hear from? Do you want to be on the show? We're open to everything. We're literally like certain professors on college campuses, open door policy. DM us anytime you want. Tell us what you want to see from the show, who you want to be on the show. If you want to be on, just DM us. And yeah, with the United Jewish Podcast, this has been Sammy Schiff, Ben Hariri. My name is Eden Toronto. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it.